Turn your speakers up and brace for the earthquake, hiding in 4 steel strings. Tonight we dive headfirst into the short, explosive life of Cliff Burton, the bass renegade who shoved classical counterpoint into the mosh pit and rewired Metallica's DNA forever. From misty Sunday mornings in Castro Valley, where Bach vinyl spun beside rosebushes, to smoke-choked clubs on the Sunset Strip, to the Swedish highway that froze time in 1986, this is a ride through grief, genius, and the raw physics of sound. You'll meet the piano-playing prodigy who practiced 6 hours a day for a brother lost too soon, the barefoot shaman who forced Metallica to abandon L.A., and the philosopher king who quoted Lovecraft backstage before detonating Anesthesia, pulling teeth on stage. If you love thrash metal history, unsung virtuosos, or stories where tragedy forges legend, hit play and feel the subharmonics crawl up your spine, because Cliff Burton never really left the stage. He's still shaking the world, one low note at a time. Lower the needle of memory back to February 10th, 1962. The Sunday morning rain over Castro Valley, California, is thin and misty, the kind that smells faintly of eucalyptus and asphalt. Inside Eden Hospital, Ray Burton, public school administrator, Korean War veteran, consummate gentleman, leans over a humming incubator and meets his new son. Jan Burton, an accomplished medical secretary with a soft spot for chamber music, smiles through exhaustion. Clifford Lee is their third and last child, trailing elder siblings Connie and Scott. They live in a tidy ranch house on a street dotted with hopeful rosebushes, but the true center of gravity is a worn mahogany record cabinet, aching with orchestral vinyl. Ray's weekend ritual is simple. Stack LPs, spin Bach, invite his children to sit cross-legged and listen for the places where melody curls back on itself like a Mobius strip. Cliff is too young to talk, yet when harpsichords flutter through the speaker grill, the infant turns his head, an omen that music will be more oxygen than pastime. Fast forward to kindergarten. While other 5-year-olds wage crayon wars, Cliff chooses the piano corner. Jan hovers nearby, correcting posture, reminding him that music, like manners, is made of discipline. He learns treble clef as fluidly as the alphabet, but there is already restlessness in the miniature shoulders. The rigid keys seem to confine ideas that want to slither in stranger directions. By 2nd grade, he is negotiating extra practice time not for scales, but for his own oddball improvisations, little labyrinths of left-hand thunder, echoing J.S. Bach's toccata and fugue, yet stained with a 1970s garage rock sneer. The household rotates around Scott, the big brother who burns brighter than neighborhood streetlights. Scott is tall, athletic, a baseball prodigy who keeps a transistor radio glued to his ear. Cliff idolizes him fiercely. If Scott dribbles a basketball, Cliff dribbles. If Scott catches frogs behind the irrigation canal, Cliff wades in pronto. Somewhere between frog hunts and Little League, the Burton parents notice both boys share an uncanny ear. Scott for the cadences of sports announcer chatter, Cliff for time signatures. They are, as neighbors say, peanut butter and jelly, complementary halves of a symmetrical dream. Then the aneurysm detonates. One autumn morning in 1975, Scott, age 16, wobbles mid-hallway at Castro Valley High, collapses, and never regains consciousness. Half the student body attends the funeral, their buzzing adolescent invincibility suddenly shattered. At 12, Cliff has no lexicon for grief, so he invents one. He drags a bulky portable radio down the hallway, dials in FM rock, and sits alone mouthing the bass lines, mimicking air strings. In the quiet corners of that newly cavernous house, he whispers a promise that will become legend. I will be the best bassist the world has ever seen, for Scott. 2 months later, with blister-raw determination, he flips allowances and birthday change into a used red Rickenbacker 4001 from Don Ware's Music City in San Francisco. That purchase marks day one of a monastic practice schedule that would intimidate medical interns. 6 hours a day, rain or shine, teenage Cliff hunkers beside the washing machine because the concrete utility room offers the best acoustics. He is still tiny for his age, so the full-scale bass looks like a surfboard across his torso. Yet watch him. He lifts, adjusts, and begins plucking Jethro Tull's Bourrée until the entire house quivers. The local middle school band instructor begs him to join the jazz ensemble. Cliff agrees solely to raid the sheet music library, dissecting Charlie Mingus walking runs and Stanley Clark's slap passages before disappearing back to his lair for another 5-hour stint. His parents worry about social skills, but his agitation vanishes only when calluses and strings need. By 8th grade, he is sneaking copies of Motorhead and throat-ripping Black Sabbath into class, scribbling time changes in the margin of his math homework. The debate isn't whether he will make music his life. The debate is whether anything else can survive alongside it. High school brings the first visible mutation in style. Out go the neat collared shirts Jan once ironed. In come thrift store bell-bottoms, patchwork denim jackets, and a mane of copper hair that flares like a solar storm when he headbangs. Teachers can scarcely reconcile the A student who quotes Shakespeare in English class with the cafeteria outcast reading H.P. Lovecraft for lunch. But contradictions are Cliff's natural ecosystem. He attends astronomy club after school, then rides home blasting Thin Lizzy's Emerald, analyzing Phil Lynot's melodic swagger with surgical precision. That analytical ear blossoms into his first bona fide band, Easy Street, named after a notoriously seedy Oakland strip club marquee that the underage members find hilariously rebellious. Guitarist Jim Martin, future Faith No More mercenary, sports aviator shades and a chain wallet. Drummer Mike Borden already pounds like tribal thunder. Band practice unfolds in Martin's garage. A claustrophobic sauna smelling of motor oil, cheap incense, and adolescent ambition. Cliff conducts the mayhem, suggesting chord inversions, arguing tempo maps, occasionally pausing to air conduct imaginary violins where the bridge should soar. They graduate to parties, then back alley teen centers, then 1981's Battle of the Bands at Hayward's rooftop recreation complex. The stage is a plywood rectangle sunk into gravel, but to 1,500 screaming teenagers, it might as well be Madison Square Garden. Agents of Misfortune, a rebranding of Easy Street, unleash a 3-song set culminating in a wah-wah-laden bass solo so outrageous half the judges forget to hold up scorecards. Years later, bootleg VHS proves that Cliff already possesses the building blocks of For Whom the Bell Tolls and Anesthesia, Pulling Teeth, hiding them among otherwise formless jams like Easter eggs for the future. Senior year ends, but suburban radii cannot contain the wildfire of Bay Area thrash brewing in the early 80s. Cliff bounces briefly through classes at Chabot College in Hayward, music theory, keyboard harmony, 8 a.m. sight singing, but every lecture trickles back into fretboard experiments. He pores over Niccolo Paganini's violin caprices and transposes them an octave down, weaving diminished arpeggios into what will become the building blocks of thrash metal. Enter Trauma, a semi-professional outfit whose stage show includes laser lights and more smoke machine fluid than the budget truly supports. Cliff, still shy in conversation, transforms on stage into a barefoot shaman, hair pinwheeling, feeding distortion into Morley Power wah units until the club's fuse box threatens mutiny. August 22nd, 1982. Trauma lands a slot at Hollywood's legendary Whiskey A Go-Go on Sunset Strip. Fate takes its seat at the bar in the form of drummer Lars Ulrich and guitarist James Hetfield, finishing lukewarm Budweisers and nursing a dream called Metallica. They watch slack-jawed as Cliff's solo explodes past 160 beats per minute, each note crisp yet feral, a paradox they instantly crave in their band. The backstage conversation is equal parts shotgun proposal and kidnap fantasy. Cliff lights a Winston, listens while James and Lars gush about new wave of British heavy metal influences, and swears they'll conquer the world if he plugs in next to them. He shrugs. The music is interesting, but Los Angeles is not. If Metallica wants him, they must migrate north to the Bay Area. Neither founder blinks. Deal accepted. Within weeks, Metallica's entire gravitational field shifts to El Cerrito, where they rehearse in a concrete room called the Metalli Mansion, subsisting on deli sliced bologna and stale beer. It is 1983 when Johnny Z to Megaforce Records wires them enough cash to record their debut in Rochester, New York. Tempers flare during the van ride cross-country, U-Haul trailers fishtail, amps slide, pocket change evaporates. But Cliff remains the calm center, head buried in Dostoevsky paperbacks between gas station stops. In the studio, he breaks every bassist stereotype, overdubbing swells of feedback that engineers initially mistake for guitar. Metal up your ass. The intended album title horrifies distributors. Cliff's deadpan rejoinder, so kill 'em all then, not only becomes the name, but the ethos of a genre that will infect skate parks, fraternity houses, and suburban basements worldwide. Tours follow, grim, glorious, poverty-lined sagas across the American interstate. They share roach-infested motel rooms and play to 50 drunk locals, crawling into sleeping bags behind the stage because there is no backstage. Cliff's nightly ritual includes an extended bass solo that flips the crowd from skeptical head nods to foaming mosh pits. He staggers off stage, smiles shyly, sips beer from the can, and re-enters philosopher mode, debating quantum mechanics with crew members who understand maybe half of what he says. February 1984, Metallica flies to Sweet Silence Studios in Copenhagen to track Ride the Lightning. Producer Flemming Rasmussen is equal parts engineer and referee, corralling riffs that pour from the quartet like volcanic ash. Cliff writes or co-writes 6 songs, stacking dram-sized shards of medieval harmonies into Fade to Black, The Call of Cthulhu, and of course that war drum intro to For Whom the Bell Tolls, which is in truth lead bass masquerading as guitar. At night, he slings a cheap acoustic around the control room couch, finger-picking Bach's Cello Suite No. 1 Minute just to clear the psychic palate. Elektra Records signs the band amid label bidding wars. Suddenly there's per diem money for actual hotel rooms, yet Cliff insists on sleeping on the floor because the mattress is too soft. He remains a paradox. His wardrobe is a thrift store time capsule, bell-bottoms, worn boots, faded misfit shirts, yet he owns more Lovecraft paperbacks than socks. He lectures Kirk on the Greek root of the word Cthulhu, then leads the crew in Monty Python quotes until dawn. December 1985, they return to Copenhagen for Master of Puppets. This recording is less an album and more an exorcism. Lars's tempos reach orbital speed, James's lyrics dissect addiction. Kirk's solos wail apocalyptic, yet Cliff is the secret architect, layering harmony guitars an octave down, suggesting modal shifts lifted straight from Bela Bartok's string quartets. He jams Orion every lunch break, scrapping one melody after the next until the final arrangement becomes a suite disguised as a metal instrumental. He tells the band, only half joking, that if they play it too fast on stage, they're fired. Master drops in March 1986, and critical consensus detonates. Metallica is no longer a promising garage band, but the spear tip of thrash metal, maybe of heavy music itself. Whereas British critics applaud precision, Cliff's friends back home notice he still rides shotgun in his mom's beige Datsun when visiting. Fame glances off him like sparks off an anvil. He is interested only in the next peculiar chord voicing. And then the bus rolls. Everyone knows the outline. 7:15 a.m., September 27th, 1986. A black ice allegation on a Swedish highway, a bunk assignment card game, no seatbelts, a nighttime yawn, or perhaps a patch of oil. History offers possibilities, but refuses certainty. The coach overturns, Cliff is ejected through a window, pinned beneath the literal weight of the tour itself. James Hetfield, barefoot, sprints up and down the asphalt screaming, while Lars kneels in roadside weeds, praying and cursing simultaneously. Emergency crews arrive. There is nothing to revive. The autopsy lists blunt force trauma. Fans list cosmic injustice. Newspapers print polite obituaries, but they cannot translate how 24 short years produce music that will outlive countless world leaders. The funeral is private. His urn's ashes scatter over Maxwellton Ranch in California, while Orion plays from a battery-powered boombox, Cliff's own bass lines delivering the eulogy. The pulse of his echo only accelerates posthumously. 1988's And Justice for All Prince, his unused riffs into To Live Is to Die, culminating in a spoken word stanza Cliff used to recite backstage, "When a man lies, he murders some part of the world." 30-plus years later, entire arenas chant those words as though they were scripture. Rolling Stone's periodic greatest bassist lists shuffle living legends, but Cliff remains a fixed point near, or at, the apex. Mesa Boogie sells out of D180 heads. Area releases a Pro 2 signature bass, black and gold, like a heavy metal Excalibur. Ray Burton, retired and widowed yet unstoppable, turns into a global ambassador of Cliff's creed. He answers fan mail, attends every Metallica show within plain reach, signs autographs with his son's name, because Cliff would have done it if he were here. Alameda County, California, immortalizes Cliff Burton Day every February 10th, prompting municipal employees to raise horns between council votes. Local marching bands arrange Master of Puppets for sousaphones and xylophones, confounding grandparents who nonetheless clap along. In 2019, San Francisco's Chase Center sells out 2 nights for Metallica's S&M 2. When symphony bassist Scott Pingle creeps on stage for a solo tribute, the arena hushes. He bows the opening chromatic run of Anesthesia, Pulling Teeth, triggers a distortion pedal, and 18,000 velvet seat patrons erupt into the first bona fide mosh pit in symphonic history. Meanwhile, children of the streaming age discover Cliff accidentally. Algorithm spits a 60-second clip of a red-haired maniac swirling on stage, and curiosity turns into obsession. They sample his riffs for vaporwave projects, splice his solos into drill beats, create Minecraft tributes where pixel block statues of Cliff loom over digital landscapes. The cross-pollination pleases him. Wherever cosmic backstage he roams, he always insisted that genres were imaginary fences. What then do we take from his childhood vantage point, that small living room where Bach vinyl clicked and popped? Perhaps it is this: grief can be kiln and crucible, that a 12-year-old can weaponize sorrow into 6-hour-a-day practice sessions that eventually rewrite a genre, that oddball passions, Lovecraft tales, bell-bottom fashion, vegetarian ethics, and quantum physics textbooks can simmer into art that bulldozes cultural boundaries. That classical counterpoint, when filtered through sweat-stung pickup coils, becomes not a contradiction, but an evolution. And here's the part where you, viewer, become the final movement. Somewhere in your own life is a Scott, some flash of loss or longing that deserves tribute. You may not own a vintage Rickenbacker or a fuzz pedal, but you possess one miraculous elastic resource: time. Use it ruthlessly. Pluck reality's strings until they bleed a sound that belongs to only you. Practice until your bedroom carpet wears thin. Then drag your art into the bright light of day, even if no one listens. Especially if no one listens. Cliff Burton's story insists that virtuosity is not measured by chart position or unit sales. It is measured by how completely you surrender to the vibration itself. And that's all for today's video. If you like this video, hit that thumbs up, let us know your thoughts in the comments section, and subscribe so you won't miss out on future uploads. See you next time.